The envelope wasn't where I left it. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, staring at the desk by the window. The stack of papers I'd arranged yesterday evening, utility bills, mortgage statements, the promotion letter from work, had been shuffled. Not dramatically, just enough that someone with less attention to detail might not notice. But I'd placed them with the letterhead facing left, edges aligned. Now they faced right, slightly askew. Martha had been in here. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I walked to the desk and checked the contents. Everything was still there. Technically, the electric bill, the water statement with my name printed clearly as account holder, the mortgage assistance documents showing my monthly contributions, but someone had read them. Someone had needed to know exactly how much I was paying for things. Clint? My mother's voice drifted up from downstairs. Are you coming down for breakfast? I made pancakes. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I opened the desk drawer where I kept my personal files. The folder containing my employment contract and tax documents sat exactly where it should, but the tab had been bent slightly, a small crease that hadn't existed yesterday. Clint! Coming. I took photos of the desk with my phone, capturing the arrangement of papers, then carefully restored them to their original positions. Small insurance policy, the kind of thing that seems paranoid until it isn't. Downstairs, Martha stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with theatrical precision. She was already dressed for her shift at the store. Pressed khakis, polo shirt with the company logo, hair pulled back tight. At 50, she maintained the kind of rigid professionalism that middle management demanded, the kind that made customers think she cared about their shopping experience. I thought we could celebrate, she said without turning around. Your big promotion. The word big carried just enough emphasis to make it sound small. Thanks. I poured coffee from the pot she'd left warming. Black, no sugar. Martha knew this, but still kept offering me cream. Regional Logistics Analyst, that's quite a title. She slid 2 pancakes onto a plate and set it in front of me. What does that even mean? Do you analyze trucks? Data patterns and supply chain efficiency, route optimization, inventory forecasting. So, trucks. I cut into the pancakes. They were slightly undercooked in the center, the way she always made them. It's more about mathematical modeling, identifying inefficiencies in distribution networks. Sounds complicated. She sat across from me with her own plate. They're paying you more for this complicated work? 15% increase, plus quarterly bonuses if we hit performance targets. Martha nodded slowly, fork paused halfway to her mouth. That's wonderful, honey, really wonderful. Though I suppose that means you'll be too big for your boots soon, too important to help out around here. There it was, the turn. It always came eventually. I'm still paying the utilities, I said, and the mortgage assistance. Nothing's changing there. Of course not. I wouldn't dream of asking you to stop. She took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. Though I noticed the electric bill went up again last month. And water. Everything keeps going up. I saw that. The electric company sent a notice about rate adjustments. It's getting expensive. Running a house isn't cheap, you know. She gestured vaguely with her fork. The heater's making that noise again. Probably needs a repair. And the roof. We really should have someone look at it before winter. I drank my coffee and said nothing. This was a script we'd performed many times. Martha would list household expenses, I would acknowledge them, and eventually I would agree to cover whatever new cost had appeared. It was easier than arguing, cheaper than moving out. Or so I'd told myself for the past 2 years since graduating and taking the job at the firm. Anyway, Martha continued, brightening artificially, I'm sure your promotion will cover any little increases. That's the nice thing about moving up in the world. More responsibilities, but more money too. Usually. And you're so clever with money. Always have been. Even in high school you were balancing your checking account like some little accountant. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Must be nice being naturally good with numbers. Some of us have to work harder at it. I finished the pancakes and carried my plate to the sink. Martha remained seated, watching me rinse it and place it in the dishwasher. I have to get to work, I said. Of course, important data to analyze. She stood, gathering her own dishes. Oh, before you go, I meant to mention, I've been thinking about doing some renovations, nothing major, just updating the kitchen a bit, maybe new cabinets. It would really increase the property value. We talked about this. The house is mortgaged. Any major renovations would require approval from the lender. It's my house, Clint. It's the bank's house until the mortgage is paid off, which won't happen for another 15 years at the current rate. Martha's smile thinned. You sound like your father, always finding reasons why things can't be done. I grabbed my keys from the counter. My father had left when I was 12, moved to Oregon, remarried. We exchanged birthday cards. That was the extent of our relationship. Martha brought him up whenever she wanted to end a conversation by making it uncomfortable. I'll be home late, I said. We're presenting to a new client tomorrow. Need to finalize the projections. Always working, my ambitious son. She walked past me toward the front door, car keys jingling in her hand. Just don't forget where you came from. Who supported you through college? Who kept a roof over your head while you were studying? The student loans I was still paying down said otherwise, but I didn't argue. Martha reached the door first, paused with her hand on the knob. Lock up when you leave, she said, and try to be home for dinner tomorrow. It's been ages since we ate together properly. She left. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway before going back upstairs to my room. The papers on my desk remained exactly as I'd rearranged them. Good, but the bent folder tab still bothered me. I opened my laptop and logged into the online portal for the mortgage company. Username and password auto-filled. The account summary loaded quickly. Outstanding balance, monthly payment schedule, property details. Cosigners listed, Martha Vance. Just Martha. I scrolled down to the documents section and found the original mortgage agreement. Opened it. Read through the signature page. Martha's name appeared twice, as primary borrower and as property owner. My name appeared nowhere, but I'd contributed to the down payment. I had the bank transfer receipts. 3 years ago, when Martha decided to buy this house, she'd needed help making the 20% down payment. I'd been working part-time while finishing my degree, but I'd saved up $12,000. She'd borrowed the rest from her retirement account. It'll be our house, she'd said. You'll be on the title. We'll split everything properly. I searched my email for the original documentation, found the message from Martha's real estate agent. The purchase agreement listed only Martha as buyer. The title documents showed sole ownership. Every piece of paper had her name alone. Just temporary, she'd told me when I'd asked about getting added to the title. We'll update it after closing. It's easier this way with my credit score being higher. 3 years ago. Still temporary. I checked the household utility accounts next. Electric, water, gas, internet, all registered under my name, all automatically deducted from my checking account each month. The mortgage assistance payments also came from my account, transferred directly to Martha's. The math was simple. I paid approximately $2,000 per month for a house I didn't own, plus groceries, plus household repairs when they came up, plus the occasional request for just a small loan that never got repaid. My phone buzzed. Text from Derek, my supervisor at work. Meeting pushed to 10. Client wants revised projections for Q4. Can you have them ready? I responded affirmatively and closed the laptop. Time to go. But first, I opened my desk drawer one more time and took out the folder with the bent tab. Inside were my personal tax returns, employment contracts, and bank statements. I flipped through them carefully. The property tax assessment statement was missing. I'd received it 2 weeks ago. A notification that property taxes were increasing next year. I'd filed it here specifically because Martha had asked to see it, claimed she needed to budget properly. I'd made a copy for her and kept the original. Now the original was gone. I took a photo of the empty folder, time-stamped and geotagged, then locked the drawer and pocketed the key. Paranoid? Maybe. But Martha had been acting strangely lately. More trips to the mall, new clothes appearing in her closet. She'd mentioned something about a vacation to Florida last week, just in passing, testing the waters to see if I'd offer to help pay for it. At work, the office was already humming with morning activity. My cubicle sat in the corner of the analyst pod, surrounded by 3 other junior analysts who spent most of their time complaining about workload. I preferred the corner position. Fewer distractions, better sightlines to the door. Derek appeared at my desk around 9:30, coffee in hand, looking tired. The client wants a deeper dive into the seasonal variance models. Thinks their shipping costs should be lower in Q3. They probably should be, I said. I flagged inefficiencies in their Midwest routing 3 months ago. They didn't implement the changes. Can you quantify that? Show them what they're leaving on the table? I pulled up the relevant spreadsheets. Give me 2 hours. Derek nodded and walked away. 2 hours meant 90 minutes if I skipped lunch. I worked steadily, building comparison models, running optimization algorithms, formatting presentation slides. The numbers flowed logically, one conclusion leading to the next. This was the work I understood. Variables and outcomes, cause and effect, no ambiguity. Unlike home, where every conversation felt like negotiation and every silence felt like accusation. Around noon, Jennifer from accounting stopped by my desk. "Hey, Clint, congratulations on the promotion. Well deserved?" "Thanks. We should grab lunch sometime. Celebrate properly." She smiled warmly. Jennifer was kind, efficient, and had never once asked me for money or favors. We'd worked together for 2 years in adjacent departments. "Maybe next week," I said. "I'm buried right now." "Of course, just let me know." She walked away, and I felt a small pang of something like regret. Normal people made plans for lunch. Normal people celebrated promotions with friends. Normal people didn't spend their evenings calculating how much money they'd spent keeping their mother's house running. I finished the client projections by 11:30 and sent them to Derek. He responded within minutes. Perfect. Exactly what we needed. The rest of the day passed in the usual rhythm of meetings, emails, and data reviews. I left the office at 7, drove home through traffic that had thinned to a manageable flow. Martha's car sat in the driveway when I arrived, lights on in the kitchen and living room. I parked and sat in my car for a moment, engine off, watching the house. It looked normal, suburban, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happened. But there was something wrong underneath, something that had been wrong for a long time, and I was only now beginning to see the full shape of it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Mr. Vance, this is Christine from Hillside Realty. I wanted to follow up on the consultation your mother scheduled last week regarding the property on..." I hung up. Real estate consultation. Martha was talking to real estate agents about selling the house I'd helped buy, the house where I still lived, the house that apparently belonged entirely to her. I got out of the car and walked inside. Martha was in the living room, laptop open, browsing something on the screen. She closed it quickly when I entered. "You're home early," she said. "It's 7:30. "Well, still, I thought you'd be working late again." She stood, stretching. "I ordered Thai food. Should be here soon. Your favorite, Pad See You." "Thanks." I dropped my bag by the stairs. "Had any interesting calls today?" "Calls? No. Why?" "Just wondering." Martha's expression flickered, something uncertain crossing her features before smoothing back into casual pleasantness. Long day at the store, corporates pushing this new inventory system, complete nightmare. I nodded and headed upstairs to my room. The papers on my desk hadn't moved, small relief, but I photographed them again anyway, just to document the consistency. Outside, a car pulled up. Thai food delivery. Martha called up that dinner was ready. I saved the photos to a cloud backup and went back downstairs. We ate in relative silence, Martha scrolling through her phone between bites. I watched her carefully, looking for tells, signs of deception. She'd always been good at maintaining appearances, but everyone slipped eventually. "I'm thinking of taking some time off next month," she said suddenly. "Maybe going to visit Rachel in Phoenix. Haven't seen her in years." Rachel was Martha's sister. They'd barely spoken since their mother passed away 8 years ago. Something about inheritance disputes and old resentments. "That's nice," I said. "Would you be okay managing things here while I'm gone? It's only a week." Managing things. Translation, paying for things. "Sure," Martha smiled. "You're such a good son, Clint. Really. I know I don't say it enough, but I appreciate everything you do." I finished my dinner and took my plate to the sink. Upstairs, in the privacy of my room, I opened my laptop again and began documenting everything. Every bill I'd paid, every contribution I'd made, every conversation where Martha had promised to add me to the title soon, or next month, or when the paperwork clears. The pattern was obvious once I looked for it. She'd been planning this for a while. Maybe from the beginning. My phone buzzed again. Text from an unknown number. "This is Christine from Hillside Realty. Please call me back regarding the property consultation. We have buyers interested." I deleted the message and blocked the number. Tomorrow, I would start making calls of my own, to lawyers, to the mortgage company, to anyone who could explain exactly what rights I had, if any, to the house I'd been paying for. Tonight, I would document everything, because numbers don't lie, but people absolutely do. The argument started over a thermostat setting. Martha had turned the heat up to 76 degrees when I got home from work Tuesday evening. The house felt like a sauna. I walked through the front door, set down my laptop bag, and immediately went to adjust it back to 68. "Don't touch that," Martha's voice came from the kitchen doorway. Sharp, commanding. "It's 76 degrees in here. The electric bill is already high enough." "I'm cold. I've been cold all day. Some of us can't afford to walk around in short sleeves pretending we're tough." I was wearing a button-down shirt and slacks, standard office attire. "I'm not pretending anything. 76 is excessive. We agreed on 68. You agreed. I live here too, Clint. Or have you forgotten that? I turned to face her fully. She stood with arms crossed, chin lifted in that particular way that signaled she was preparing for escalation. The store manager pose, the one she used on employees who questioned her scheduling decisions. I haven't forgotten anything, I said, including who pays the utility bills. Oh, here we go. St. Clint paying for everything. Let me get my violin. I'm just stating facts. The electric bill last month was $340. The month before was $280. We're trending upward, and it's only October. Martha walked into the living room, deliberately positioning herself between me and the thermostat. You make decent money now. Your big promotion, remember. Surely you can handle a slightly higher electric bill without having a breakdown over it. It's not about handling it. It's about unnecessary waste. Unnecessary. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what's unnecessary. Your constant nickel and diming, your spreadsheets and your calculations, and your endless tracking of every penny that goes in and out of this house. Someone has to track it. Why? Because you don't trust me? Because you think I'm incapable of managing my own home? You're home, I said quietly. The shift in her expression was immediate, guarded. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. I moved toward the stairs. No, explain. What did you mean by that? I stopped, hand on the banister, turned back. I meant exactly what I said. It's your home. Your name on the title, your mortgage. I'm just paying to live here. You're not paying rent, Clint. You're contributing to household expenses. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, I pay $2,000 a month for utilities and mortgage assistance, and I own exactly nothing. Martha's face flushed. That's incredibly ungrateful, after everything I've done for you. After I let you live here while you got on your feet after college. Let me live here. I helped buy this house. $12,000 for the down payment. Or did you forget that? That was a loan. I always intended to pay you back. 3 years ago. Still waiting. She stepped closer, voice dropping to something more dangerous. You want to start keeping score? Fine. Let's talk about the 18 years I raised you. The food, the clothes, the roof over your head, the college application fees I paid, the car insurance I covered until you were 22. Should I send you an invoice? That's not the same thing, and you know it. It's exactly the same thing. Family helps family. But apparently, now that you're making good money, you've decided you're too important to help out your own mother. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, something sharper, clearer. I've been helping out. Every month, for 3 years. I'm questioning whether that help is being used efficiently. Efficiently, Martha's voice rose. Listen to yourself. You sound like one of your corporate reports. This is a home, not a balance sheet. A home I'm not legally connected to in any way. Because you never asked to be. You never brought up the title transfer. You never pushed for it. So don't act like I deliberately excluded you. That wasn't true. I'd mentioned it at least 4 times over the past 3 years. Each time, Martha had deflected, said the lawyers were expensive, the paperwork was complicated, we'd handle it next quarter, but arguing about the historical record felt pointless now. I'm asking now, I said. I want to be added to the title. I've contributed enough to warrant part ownership. Martha stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. You're serious. You actually think you deserve to own half my house because you've been paying some bills. I helped buy it. You gave me a loan, one I'll pay back when I'm able. But that doesn't entitle you to property ownership. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Explain it to me. It works like this. I qualified for the mortgage. I signed the papers. I took on the legal responsibility. You're a resident who contributes to expenses. That's the arrangement. An arrangement you never clearly defined until right now. An arrangement any reasonable person would understand without needing a contract. I felt the conversation spiraling into familiar territory. Circular arguments. Emotional manipulation disguised as reason. I'd had enough. Fine, I said. You're right. It's your house, your responsibility, which means the bills are also your responsibility. Martha's expression shifted. What does that mean? It means if I'm just a resident who contributes to expenses, then I can choose how much to contribute, or whether to contribute at all. Don't be ridiculous. I'm being perfectly reasonable. You've established that I have no ownership stake, which means I have no obligation beyond standard rent. Market rate for a single room in this neighborhood is about $800 a month. That's what I'll pay going forward. You're paying the utilities, the mortgage assistance. That's the agreement. An agreement you just described as informal and non-binding. So I'm renegotiating. $800 a month, starting November 1st. Take it or leave it. Martha's face went through several expressions rapidly. Shock, anger, calculation. You're being manipulative. This is some kind of power play. This is me setting boundaries. Boundaries. She spat the word. You sound like you've been reading self-help books. Therapy nonsense. I sound like someone who's tired of being taken advantage of. That did it. Martha's control finally slipped completely. Taken advantage of? You ungrateful little... After everything I've sacrificed, after I put my own life on hold to raise you alone, after your father abandoned us and I worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and this is the thanks I get? Accusations and ultimatums? I'm not giving ultimatums. I'm stating what I'm willing to pay. You can accept it, or I can find somewhere else to live. The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't planned to say them. They'd emerged from some place I didn't recognize, cold and final and completely serious. Martha's eyes narrowed. You're threatening to move out. I'm considering my options. Because I won't put you on the title to my house. Because I won't give you ownership of property you didn't earn. Because this situation isn't sustainable. Because every conversation about money turns into emotional warfare. Because I'm tired. Then leave. If you're so clever, if you're so successful with your promotion and your analysis job, go get your own place. Cover your own bills. See how expensive the real world is. The challenge hung there, sharp-edged and deliberate. Martha thought I wouldn't do it, thought I was bluffing, thought I needed her more than she needed my money. She was wrong. Okay, I said. Okay, what? Okay, I'll leave. Her expression flickered, surprise, maybe concern, but she recovered quickly. Fine. When? I'll be out by the end of the week. This week? Don't be dramatic. Take your time. Find a proper place. I don't need time. I can find a studio apartment in 3 days. Sign a lease by Friday, be moved out Saturday. Martha laughed, but it sounded uncertain now. You're serious. Completely. Over a thermostat. You're going to move out over a thermostat setting. No, I'm moving out because this situation has been dysfunctional for 3 years, and I'm done pretending it isn't. I walked upstairs before she could respond. Behind me, I heard her say something else, something about immaturity and rash decisions, but I was already in my room, closing the door, pulling out my phone. Apartment hunting started immediately. I opened 3 different rental sites and began filtering. Studios under $1,200 a month, available immediately within 10 miles of work. The results populated quickly. Dozens of options. I made a list, scheduled viewings for the next 2 days, calculated moving costs, utility deposits, first month's rent. The math was straightforward. I had enough saved to cover everything comfortably. My credit score was excellent. References wouldn't be a problem. This was actually happening. Around midnight, I heard Martha's bedroom door close. The house went quiet except for the heating system cycling on and off, maintaining its excessive 76 degrees. I sat at my desk, working through logistics, making lists, planning the transition. At one point, I opened the mortgage company portal again, checked the account details one more time. Martha's name alone, always had been. The evidence was undeniable. Then I checked the utility accounts. Every single one, electric, water, gas, internet, listed me as the primary account holder. Not Martha. Me. I'd set them up when she first bought the house because her credit score, despite what she'd claimed, hadn't been good enough to qualify without deposits. I'd provided the deposits. My name had gone on the accounts. Oh, she'd promised to reimburse me and transfer them to her name once her credit improved. 3 years later, still my name. Still my responsibility. I took screenshots of everything. The utility accounts, the payment histories, the mortgage portal showing her sole ownership. Documentation mattered. If this went sideways, and it was going sideways, I needed proof of everything. Wednesday morning, Martha was already gone when I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I made coffee, ate breakfast standing at the counter, and left for work early. The day passed in a blur of meetings and emails. Between calls, I toured 3 apartments during lunch and late afternoon. The third one, a studio in a renovated building 4 miles from the office, was perfect. Clean, quiet, month-to-month lease option available. I filled out the application on the spot. By Thursday morning, I had approval. Lease signing scheduled for Friday at 3, move-in Saturday. I texted Martha. Found a place, moving out this weekend. Need to discuss utility accounts and final bills. She responded 3 hours later. We should talk about this in person. You're being impulsive. Me. Nothing to discuss. Decisions made. I'll be home at 7. She didn't respond. That evening, I arrived home to find her waiting in the living room. She'd arranged herself carefully, sitting on the couch, hands folded, expression controlled. The performance version of Martha. The reasonable one. "Clint, sit down. Let's talk like adults." I remained standing. "I don't need to sit. This won't take long." "You're really doing this. Moving out over one argument." "This isn't about one argument. It's about 3 years of accumulated imbalance." Martha sighed heavily. "I know I can be difficult sometimes. I know I push. But we can work through this. Family works through things." "We're not working through anything. I'm leaving. What we need to discuss is the practical details." "Such as?" "The utility accounts are in my name. All of them. I'll be closing or transferring them next week. You'll need to open new accounts in your name before then." Her composure cracked slightly. "What are you talking about? The utilities are for the house." "The utilities are in my name, my legal responsibility. When I leave, that responsibility ends." "You can't just shut off the utilities. You can't do that." "I can transfer them to you, but you'll need to qualify for the accounts. Provide deposits if required. I'll give you until the 15th to handle it. After that, I'm closing everything that's in my name." Martha stood up, her careful control evaporating. "This is insane. You're being vindictive." "I'm being practical. I'm not responsible for utilities on a house I don't live in." "You're trying to punish me because I wouldn't give you ownership, because I stood up for myself." "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Protecting yourself." She moved closer, voice rising. "From what? From your own mother? From the person who raised you?" "From a financial arrangement that's entirely one-sided." "One-sided? You've lived here for 3 years. Rent-free." "Not rent-free. $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year, $72,000 total, for a house I don't own and can be kicked out of at any time." Martha's face flushed deep red. "That's not fair. You're twisting everything." "I'm stating facts. Numbers don't lie." "No, but people do. And right now, you're lying to yourself if you think this is about money. This is about control, about you needing to feel superior." I picked up my keys from the entry table. "Believe whatever you want. I'll be moved out by Saturday evening. The utilities stay active until the 15th. After that, they're your problem." "Clint, we're done talking." I walked out, got in my car, drove to a coffee shop across town, and sat there for 2 hours working on my laptop, pretending everything was normal. But my hands were steady, my mind was clear. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was making a decision instead of having one made for me. Friday passed in a mechanical sequence. Signed the lease at 3, picked up boxes from a moving supply store, started packing that evening after Martha left for her shift at work. By Saturday morning, most of my belongings were boxed and ready. I made 3 trips with my car: clothes, electronics, books, personal items. The furniture stayed. It had been in the house when I moved in. By 6 in the evening, my old room was empty except for the bed and desk. Martha came home as I was loading the last box into my trunk. She stood in the driveway watching. "So you're really going?" "Yes. This is a mistake. You'll regret it. Maybe. You'll come back. Once you realize how expensive it is out there. Once you're struggling to manage everything alone." I closed the trunk. "I'll manage fine." She looked at me for a long moment. Something in her expression I couldn't quite read. Almost like uncertainty. Almost like fear. "If you're so clever," she said finally, "then cover your own bills. See how you like it." I got in the car without responding. Pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, Martha stood watching until I turned the corner. The studio apartment felt empty and quiet. I unpacked methodically, arranging things in logical order: kitchen supplies, bathroom items, clothes in the single closet, laptop on the small desk by the window. Around midnight, I sat on the floor with my phone and began the process I'd been preparing for. First, the utility company websites: electric, water, gas. Each one had an option to close or transfer service. I filled out the forms carefully. Service termination date, October 15th, 2 weeks from now. The internet provider required a phone call. I'd handle that Monday. Then I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic transfer to Martha's mortgage account. 3 years of monthly payments, now ending. The final transfer had already processed for October. November and beyond would be silence. My phone rang. "Martha." I declined the call. She called again. I declined again. A text appeared. "The power just went off." "What did you do?" I stared at the message. The power couldn't have gone off. The termination date was set for the 15th, 2 weeks away, unless she hadn't paid her portion of the bill, unless the account was overdue and my recent changes had triggered an automatic review. Another text, Clint, answer your phone. Everything just shut off. Water, electric, everything. That wasn't possible. Not yet. I'd set the dates carefully. But then I remembered. The accounts were set to autopay from my checking account. When I'd canceled the mortgage transfer, I'd also paused all automatic payments to review them individually. The utilities had been scheduled to process tomorrow, Sunday. Without the automatic payment, they'd bounced. And if the accounts were already behind from previous months, one bounced payment would trigger shutoff. My phone rang again. This time, a different number. Not Martha's cell. A neighbor's phone, probably. I answered. Why is everything shut off? Martha's voice, high-pitched and panicked. The power, the water, the heat, it's all off. The house is getting cold. I can't... What did you do? I sat there on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes, listening to my mother spiral into panic. And I said the only thing that made sense. I'm just being clever, like you told me. Then I hung up. Outside my window, the city lights stretched in every direction. Thousands of buildings, thousands of lives, all running on systems and payments and obligations that worked because people honored them. I'd honored mine for 3 years. Now it was Martha's turn to learn what clever actually meant. The blocked number list on my phone grew to 17 entries by Wednesday. Martha had called from her cell, from work, from neighbors' phones, from numbers I didn't recognize. Each time I declined or let it ring through to voicemail. The messages started desperate, evolved to angry, then circled back to desperate again. I deleted them without listening past the first few seconds. At work, Derek stopped by my desk Tuesday morning with a project update. The client loved your Q4 projections. They're implementing the routing changes next month. Should save them about $40,000 per quarter. Good. You okay? You seem distracted. Just dealing with some personal logistics. Nothing that affects work. He nodded and left. I appreciated that about Derek. He knew when not to push. Some managers couldn't resist mining for personal details, turning every interaction into forced intimacy. Derek understood boundaries. My studio apartment was taking shape. Minimal furniture, a bed, a desk, 2 chairs, a small table. I'd ordered what I needed online, paid for next-day delivery. The space felt functional, clean, mine. No passive-aggressive notes about thermostat settings. No performance conversations disguised as family concern. The utilities at Martha's house had been shut off for 4 days now. I'd verified this through the online portals. Account status, suspended pending payment. Balance due, $843 across all services. Late fees were accumulating daily. She could restart them any time. All she needed to do was call the companies, provide payment, and establish new accounts in her name. Simple administrative process. But Martha hadn't done that. She'd spent 4 days calling me instead. Wednesday evening, I made my first serious mistake. I went to the grocery store near my old neighborhood, not the one by my new apartment, because they had better produce. I was in the frozen food section, comparing pizza options, when a voice behind me said, "Clint?" I turned. Marcus Webb stood there with a shopping basket, looking at me with an expression that mixed surprise and something else. Judgment, maybe. Marcus and I had been friends in high school. Close friends, actually. We'd drifted apart during college, different schools, different social circles, but we'd stayed in touch sporadically. He worked in commercial real estate now, sold office space to startups with more funding than sense. Marcus, hey. I heard you moved out. Jamie told me. Jamie was Marcus's girlfriend. She worked at the same retail chain as Martha, different location. The gossip network was apparently efficient. Yeah, got my own place. That's good. Independence and all that. He shifted his basket from one hand to the other. Though Jamie said your mom's having a rough time with it. Something about the utilities? There it was. The reason for the careful tone. Martha had been spreading her version of events. The utilities were in my name, I said. I closed them when I moved. She needs to open new accounts. Right, but Jamie said the house has been without power for almost a week. That's pretty extreme. She can restore service any time. One phone call. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Look, man, I get that family stuff is complicated. My parents drove me crazy too. But leaving someone without utilities? That's harsh. Especially going into winter. It's October, not winter yet. Still? I set down the pizza I'd been holding. Did Jamie tell you why I moved out? Something about a disagreement. Your mom said you got upset about household expenses. My mom said, and you believe her version? I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying, from the outside, it looks pretty harsh. The produce section suddenly felt too bright, too public. Martha owns a house that I helped buy. I contributed $12,000 to the down payment. I've paid $2,000 a month in utilities and mortgage assistance for 3 years. She refused to add me to the title. When I questioned this arrangement, she told me to leave, so I left. And I closed the utility accounts that were in my name because I'm not legally obligated to maintain them. Marcus absorbed this. Okay, that's more context than Jamie had. I'm sure it is. But still, man, she's your mom. You can't just cut off someone's power and walk away. Something cold settled in my chest. Yes, actually, I can. Because those accounts were my legal responsibility, not hers, mine, and I'm no longer responsible for a house I don't live in and don't own. It just seems vindictive. It seems like consequences. Marcus shook his head slowly. This isn't like you. You were always the reasonable one, the guy who thought things through. I did think it through, very carefully. Then you know how this looks. You know people are talking about it. People can talk about whatever they want. Your mom is struggling, Clint. Jamie says she's been emotional at work. Having trouble concentrating, she's worried about her. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. Martha had weaponized her coworkers' sympathy, turned herself into the victim, recruited people like Marcus to deliver the message. Standard operating procedure. Tell Jamie that Martha can call the utility companies any time, I said. The process takes less than an hour. She's choosing not to do it. Why would she choose that? Because she thinks if she suffers visibly enough, I'll cave. I'll come back and fix everything and resume the arrangement where I pay for everything and own nothing. Marcus looked genuinely confused now. That can't be the whole story. It's exactly the whole story. Martha wants me to feel guilty enough to reverse my decision. She's using social pressure and emotional manipulation, and she's apparently succeeding since you're here delivering her message for her. I'm not delivering her message. I'm just concerned. You're concerned based on information Martha provided through Jamie. Information designed to make me look unreasonable. Did Jamie mention the $12,000, the 3 years of payments, the refusal to add me to the title? No, of course not, because that would complicate the narrative. Marcus set down his basket on a nearby freezer case. Look, I don't want to fight about this. I just thought you should know what people are saying. I appreciate the heads up, noted. And maybe consider that there's a middle ground here, some way to help without completely cutting her off. There's no middle ground. Either I'm responsible for her utilities or I'm not. Either I own part of the house or I don't. There's no compromise position that doesn't leave me vulnerable. Vulnerable to what? To exactly what's happening right now. Emotional manipulation through proxies, social pressure, character assassination. Marcus picked up his basket again. This really isn't like you. Maybe you didn't know me as well as you thought. He left without saying goodbye. I finished my shopping and drove back to my apartment, replaying the conversation. The interaction had been predictable, but still frustrating. Martha had spent the past 4 days building a coalition of concerned friends and family, all primed to tell me how unreasonable I was being. The strategy was sound. Isolate me socially, apply pressure from multiple directions, wait for me to crack. But she'd made a fundamental miscalculation. She'd assumed I cared more about my reputation than about my financial security. She'd assumed I could be shamed into compliance. That night, I researched legal options. I'd been avoiding this step, hoping it wouldn't be necessary. But Marcus's ambush in the grocery store clarified things. Martha wasn't going to handle this quietly. She was going to escalate. I needed to escalate first. The legal concept I was looking for was called unjust enrichment. It meant receiving a benefit at someone else's expense without legal justification. I'd paid $72,000 toward a house I didn't own. Martha had benefited from those payments. The enrichment was arguably unjust. Filing a claim would require documentation. Fortunately, I had 3 years of bank statements showing automatic transfers. I had emails where Martha acknowledged my contributions. I had text messages discussing household expenses. I drafted a summary of the financial arrangement, complete with dates and amounts. $72,000 in total contributions, $12,000 for the down payment, $60,000 in utilities and mortgage assistance, 0 ownership, 0 formal agreement, 0 repayment. The document was 8 pages long by the time I finished. Precise, factual, free of emotional language. Just numbers and dates and incontrovertible evidence. Thursday morning, I took a personal day and drove to a law office 3 towns over. I'd found them through online reviews, small practice, specializing in property disputes and contract law. The consultation cost $200 for 90 minutes. The lawyer's name was Patricia Hendricks. She was probably 60, with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. Her office smelled like old books and coffee. She read through my documentation without commenting, making occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, she looked up. "This is straightforward unjust enrichment. You have excellent documentation. What are my chances?" "Of winning? High. The evidence is clear. You made substantial contributions to property you don't own. Your mother benefited from those contributions without providing compensation or ownership stake. The lack of a formal agreement actually works in your favor. It strengthens the claim that the arrangement was exploitative." "How long would it take?" "Depends on whether she contests. If she fights it, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. If she settles, we could resolve it in 60 to 90 days. "And if I win?" "The court would likely order reimbursement of your contributions, possibly with interest. In some cases, they grant a lien on the property, meaning she couldn't sell without paying you first." "A lien. I like the sound of that." "What's the downside?" I asked. "Cost. Legal fees could run $5,000 to $15,000 depending on complexity. There's also the personal cost. Family litigation is emotionally difficult. Relationships don't typically survive these kinds of disputes." "The relationship is already compromised." Patricia nodded. "Then you're in a better position than most. People usually wait until they're in crisis to seek legal remedy. You're being proactive. That's smart." I signed a retainer agreement before leaving. $5,000 down, billed against hourly rates. Patricia said she'd file the initial paperwork within a week. Martha would be served with a notice shortly after. "Be prepared for her to react badly," Patricia warned. "Most people respond to legal action with anger. They feel betrayed, even when the claim is legitimate." "I understand." "And be prepared for her to contact you directly. My advice is not to engage. Direct all communication through this office. Don't argue, don't negotiate, don't explain. That's what you're paying me for." I drove back to my apartment feeling lighter. Not happy exactly, but clear. I'd stopped reacting to Martha's manipulations and started acting according to my own plan. Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Clint Vance?" Male voice, professional. "Yes." "This is Todd Ramirez. I'm a friend of your mother's from church. She asked me to reach out to you." I hung up immediately. Blocked the number. Martha was expanding her recruitment efforts. Church friends now, probably neighbors next. The social pressure campaign was intensifying. My phone rang again 15 minutes later. Different number. I let it go to voicemail. The message started with, "Clint, this is Pastor Wilson from..." and I deleted it without listening further. She was building an army of concerned citizens, all of them convinced they were helping, none of them aware they were being weaponized. Saturday afternoon, I went to the gym. New routine, new location. The place was half empty, mostly serious lifters focused on their own workouts. I spent 90 minutes on cardio and weights, working through the tension that had been building all week. In the locker room afterward, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails, 1 text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Your mother is sitting in a cold house because of your selfishness. I'll think about that." I blocked the number and deleted the message. The voicemails were variations on the same theme. Concerned friends, church members, people who wanted to help bridge the gap between mother and son, all of them absolutely certain that if I just understood how much Martha was suffering, I'd come to my senses. None of them asked for my side of the story. That evening I got an email from Jamie, Marcus's girlfriend. Subject line, "Worried about your mom?" I deleted it without reading. An hour later, Marcus texted, "Jamie says you're not responding to her messages. Can we talk?" I blocked his number too. The isolation was intentional on their part. Make me feel alone. Make me feel like the villain. Erode my confidence until I questioned my own judgment. But I'd spent 3 years watching Martha use these exact tactics on retail employees who questioned her authority. I'd seen her orchestrate social pressure campaigns against store district managers who challenged her decisions. This was her playbook. I knew every page. Sunday morning, someone knocked on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. Marcus stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I didn't open the door. "Clint, I know you're in there. Your car's in the lot. I just want to talk." I stayed silent, motionless. "Come on, man. This is getting ridiculous. Your mom is really struggling. Jamie says she's barely eating. She's showing up to work looking exhausted. This has gone on long enough." Still silent. "Fine. Be stubborn. But you should know. People are taking sides. And right now, most of them aren't on yours. You're burning bridges. Is that really what you want? I waited until I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. Then I checked the peephole again. Empty. I returned to my laptop and continued documenting everything. Every call, every message, every contact attempt. I logged them all with timestamps and summaries. Patricia had said documentation mattered. I was building the most comprehensive record possible. Monday at work, Jennifer from accounting stopped by my desk during lunch. Hey, I heard you moved. Got your own place? Yeah, studio near the River District. That's great. Good for you. She hesitated. Is everything okay? You seem stressed lately. Just navigating some family complications, nothing that affects work. Well, if you need to talk, I'm around, and I mean that, not just being polite. Thanks, I appreciate it. She left, and I felt a small crack in the defensive wall I'd been building. Jennifer hadn't come bearing guilt or judgment. She'd just offered support, no agenda, no manipulation. Maybe not everyone was choosing sides. That afternoon, Patricia called. We've filed the preliminary paperwork. Your mother will be served by the end of the week. Are you ready for her reaction? As ready as I can be. Remember, no direct contact. Everything goes through this office. If she shows up at your apartment, don't engage. If she calls, don't answer. If she sends messages, don't respond. We're in legal territory now. Anything you say could complicate our case. Understood. Also, be aware that once she's served, she'll likely hire her own attorney. This will become adversarial quickly. Make sure you're prepared for that. I looked around my small apartment. Everything I owned fit in this one room. I had no ties to the house on Maple Drive except the money I'd poured into it. Martha had made sure I had no legal claim, no ownership stake, no leverage. Except she'd been wrong about leverage. The lawsuit was leverage. The documentation was leverage. The truth was leverage. And I was about to use all of it. I'm prepared, I told Patricia. Good. I'll be in touch once service is confirmed. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new document. Subject, timeline of events. I began writing everything from the beginning. The house purchase, the missing name on the title, the promises to add me later, the 3 years of payments, the argument about the thermostat, the demand that I leave, the utility shutoffs, the social pressure campaign, every detail, every conversation, every manipulation attempt. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. The document was 14 pages long. Comprehensive, damning. I saved it to 3 separate cloud storage services and emailed a copy to Patricia. Then I turned off my computer and went to bed. Outside, the city was quiet. My apartment was warm. The utilities worked because I paid for them directly. The space was mine because I'd signed the lease myself. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I controlled my own life. And I wasn't giving that control back. Not to Martha, not to her friends, not to anyone. Silence, I was learning, was the most powerful tool I had. So I stayed silent and let the consequences speak for themselves. The transition from we to me didn't happen with a shout. It happened with a spreadsheet. By Wednesday afternoon, I had secured a studio apartment 4 miles from my office. A clean, quiet space with a month-to-month lease that felt like a sanctuary of logic in a world of emotional static. Martha was still operating under the assumption that I was bluffing, that the thermostat argument was just a momentary lapse in my usual compliance. She left notes on the counter about working late, her handwriting casual and breezy, as if she hadn't spent the previous night questioning my gratitude and reminding me of 18 years of parental invoices. But while Martha was managing her shift at the store, I was managing the final audit of our shared history. I sat in my cubicle at the logistics firm, the corner position offering a clear view of the door and the necessary privacy to run my own route optimizations. My supervisor, Derek, had been impressed with my Q4 projections, but he had no idea I was currently projecting the collapse of a domestic economy. I started with the utilities. Every single account, electric, water, gas, and high-speed internet, was in my name. When we first moved in, Martha had claimed her credit score was temporarily low due to the mortgage process, and I had provided the deposits and the signatures to get the house running. 3 years later, those temporary accounts were still tethered to my bank account, bleeding $2,000 a month into a property I didn't own. I didn't just cancel them. I documented the history of every payment, capturing screenshots of the portals and the auto deductions. I was a logistics analyst. I knew that the only way to win a war of narratives was with an unassailable mountain of data. By Thursday, the tension in the house was a physical weight. Martha had stopped flipping pancakes and started watching me with a calculated silence. She'd mentioned a real estate consultation, a phrase that had initially felt like a threat, but now served as a confirmation. She was looking to sell the house I had helped her buy. She wanted the equity I had funded, and she wanted me gone, but on her terms, not mine. "You're awfully busy lately," she remarked Thursday evening, leaning against the kitchen island as I walked in with a stack of boxes I'd picked up from the office. "Packing," I said simply. She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "You're really going through with this? Over $80 on an electric bill?" "It's not the $80, Martha. It's the fact that I'm paying for the air you're breathing while you're talking to real estate agents behind my back." The flicker of panic in her eyes was brief, but satisfying. She hadn't expected me to know about Hillside Realty. She'd always relied on my attention to detail to keep the lights on, but she'd forgotten that same detail-oriented mind would eventually notice the inconsistencies in her own story. "I'm the owner, Clint," she snapped, recovering her store manager posture. "I have every right to look into my options. You're a tenant, an ungrateful one at that." "I was a partner when you needed $12,000 for the down payment," I reminded her. "Now I'm just a tenant." "Fine. But tenants don't pay the property taxes on their landlord's investment." I had found the missing tax statement she'd taken from my desk. It was tucked into her purse, a silent witness to her plan to have me cover the upcoming increase before she listed the property. Friday was the day of the final disconnect. I didn't go to the office. I met with a lawyer in the morning, a sharp, gray-haired woman who specialized in property disputes. She looked at my bank transfers, the original emails from the real estate agent, and the screenshots of the utility accounts. "You have a strong case for a constructive trust," she told me, her voice as clinical as my spreadsheets. "You contributed to the down payment and the ongoing mortgage with the expectation of ownership. Her promises, even verbal, carry weight when backed by this kind of financial trail. I didn't want a lawsuit. I wanted a settlement. I wanted my $12,000 back, and I wanted a clean break from the emotional warfare that had defined my early 20s. While she drafted the letter of intent, I went to the new apartment. I signed the lease, paid the deposit, and felt the first true breath of relief I'd known in years. It was small, but every square inch belonged to me. No one would shuffle the papers on my desk here. No one would bend the tabs on my folders or take photos of my tax returns. I returned to Martha's house, to the house, at 4 p.m. on Friday. I didn't wait for her to get home. I had hired 2 movers, and we worked with the kind of efficiency I usually reserved for supply chain optimization. My bed, my desk, my clothes, my files, everything was out in 90 minutes. I left one thing on the kitchen counter, the envelope she'd been looking for, but inside wasn't the tax statement. Inside was a copy of the lawyer's letter and a set of instructions for the utilities. I had scheduled the final readings for 5 p.m. I had closed the accounts in my name. Since she hadn't put her name on them in 3 years, the companies would be cutting the service unless she called and provided her own credit-backed deposit. The deposit I knew she didn't have the liquid cash for, thanks to her recent shopping trips and the vacation she'd been planning. Martha arrived just as the movers were pulling away. She blocked the driveway with her car, jumping out before the engine had even stopped. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, gesturing at the truck. "This is me leaving," I said, leaning out the window of my car. "You can't just take your things. We have a dinner tomorrow. I bought steak." "Enjoy it," I said, "though you might want to cook it fast. The gas and electric are scheduled for shut-off in 10 minutes. Her face went pale. You can't do that. It's my house." "It is, and as the owner, you're responsible for the utilities. I'm just a resident who's chosen to stop contributing." As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Martha was standing on the porch, the lawyer's envelope in one hand and her phone in the other, probably trying to call the electric company. But the numbers she was dealing with now weren't the ones I'd curated for her. They were the cold, hard realities of her own choices. The story had reached its natural conclusion. I had spent years analyzing trucks and data, but the most important optimization I'd ever performed was removing the primary inefficiency from my own life. I checked into my new life at 6 p.m. I opened my laptop, accessed my secure folder, and added the final entry to the log. Nov 1, move out complete. Utility accounts closed. Legal filing served. The future stretched forward in manageable increments, predictable progress, clear objectives, no one mistaking my access for their entitlement. I shut down the laptop and went to bed in a room that was exactly 68 degrees. Martha had told me to be clever and cover my own bills, so I had been clever, and I had covered my own bills, and I had finally stopped covering hers. She'd taught me the lesson she intended, just not in the way she'd planned to profit from it.